Hi, Astra.
Hey, Patrick. I called you over because take a look at this. This is Misty. Look at all her outfits.
Yeah.
She's crying, a mess. I don't even know if she's gonna make it to stage today. I'm gonna show Carla. Carla? How about Misty? Her wardrobe pictures. She's been crying.
Has she gone through her makeup?
As of yesterday, she wasn't really comfortable with anyone doing hair or makeup.
Whenever she feels comfortable with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cool.
How's the guest doing? Is she in her outfit yet?
She's out of it right now, but she'll go back into it.
Why?
Very fragile. Kind of had to dress her completely myself.
Really? Do you think she's going to make it onto stage?
I don't know without crying.
All right, thanks a lot. Thank you. What's going on?
Misty's throwing up. She's not the same person as she was when she walked in the door this morning.
We're going to stage in just over half an hour. Get her some water. I want to get her calm before she goes out there. I'm just hoping we can get her to stage and that we can start turning this around for her because it's obvious she is in desperate need of help.
Today on an all-new Dr. Phil.
I couldn't stop. It was like a heroin addiction.
What did Misty do to cause her to email me 5 times for help?
I know what I did was wrong.
Her reunion with her long-lost son took a dark and criminal turn.
I'm a disgusting person.
This didn't feel incestuous. I'm giving you a ticket out of this hell, and you need to figure out how to make it work. Okay, I'm going to warn you, today's topic, well, it's a tough one. It's a story about a mother who committed an unthinkable act that tore her family apart, caused a media storm, and landed her in prison for nearly 5 years. Now, that mother, Misty, is here today for her first ever television interview. Not easy for her, and she's doing it in hopes that I can help her make sense of it all. But before we learn what she did, I need to go back to the beginning because this is a story of a woman who is both perpetrator and victim. Take a look.
My childhood was frightening. Humiliation, starvation, beatings. For a long time, I was like living homeless, just like out in the middle of the woods with my mom. My mom was abusive. She was an alcoholic. She was very, like, humiliate you and like try to kill you type of abuse. She would wrap me in garbage bags and put me in the trunk of the car and drive around all day. She would like throw me in the river and tell me like I needed to learn how to swim or drown. She used to have her boyfriends shake beers up and crack them in my face so I would be drenched in beer. I would just remember her laughing about it all the time.
Did you go to school or?
The last grade that I completed was the 4th grade. I just remember like a lot of times that I would just like sort of blur my vision out and I would just sort of like mentally go somewhere else. I ended up on the streets and older men would like tell me I could stay with them. I was 10 years old, they were like 30. They would get me drunk, have sex with me, let me stay in their house. I was just not wanting to be outside anymore in the cold. At 14, I gave birth to a son. He wasn't a child that was conceived of love. From that point, I ran. I changed my name and I just kind of like hid out on the streets. When I was 17, I met my children's father. I had a common law marriage for 15 years. We had 4 children. I had gone through all of his trauma. I really felt like I was a person in life that didn't have a choice.
All right. She's been very nervous about this morning, and given her a moment to walk out and join us at this point. Yeah.
Dr. Phil, this is Misty. Misty, Dr. Phil.
Misty, Dr. Phil, have a seat. Just take your time, climb up. This is difficult for you.
Yeah.
Okay, you're good? All right, so tell me what's going through your head right now.
I know I just have to get through this. And I just want to get some help and like be able to move on with my life and have a better life and get the help.
Well, let's talk about you first, historically, because your journey through this world has been anything but easy. You said that At 10 years old, you were kicked out of your home, correct?
Yeah.
What was that home like before you were kicked out?
Awful.
What went on?
Starved, humiliated, beat. And like, I'm sorry that you're sitting here with me. Like, I understand how you must feel. I don't feel good about myself, and I know how you must feel.
Well, you don't know how I feel, because we've just met.
Yeah.
I look at what people do, and that only defines them as long as they keep doing that. And I realize you didn't have a good experience early on, and you left, and you spent time with your mother, and you guys lived in the woods a lot, correct? And you say there were times that you would wake up and she would just be gone. And you would be in the woods alone how long?
For days at a time.
How old were you?
4 or 5 years old.
And what did you eat?
Milk thistles or like clovers.
How old were you when she threw you in the river?
Young, like same age, like.
This was in the 4
yeah.
or 5 range. You almost drowned.
Yeah.
Did she help you?
No, she was laughing.
Thought it was funny. And you said men, grown men, were having sex with you when you were 10, 11, 12 years old?
Yeah.
In order to let you stay there with them. And then at 14, you got pregnant. And that pregnancy brings us to where we are today. What did Misty do to cause her to email me 5 times for help after the break?
We had sex and he did record it. It was like a heroin addiction, but it was like to a person.
And later,
When I met him, I changed. My family watched me go from a mother who was taking care of my children and making dinner and doing homework and flossing my kids' teeth into going to somebody who can only be addicted to talking to this person all the time. It was sickening.
I was a housewife and mother for 15 years, and then I was reunited with this person. And when we met, I was not emotionally stable or mature enough. The relationship turned sexual. Eventually, I was arrested. Like I said, I was a housewife and mother for 15 years, and I'm worried that my 4 children that were caught up in the tangles of this mess are going to really have a horrible life.
well, I'm here with Misty, who you've just been hearing about in terms of her journey through early life. She made national news back in 2012 after a reunion with her long-lost son took a dark and criminal turn.
A court hearing is set for this week for a Lake County woman who's accused of having sex with her teenage son. 32-year-old Misty Atkinson is charged with 4 felonies. Prosecutors say Atkinson was an absentee mother who used the internet to find her son.
I wrote something like, "Do you know who your biological mother is?"
They exchanged text messages that allegedly turned into a sexual relationship.
There were freaking selfies. They were explicit. I'm sure there was nude photos. It was overwhelming. I couldn't stop it. It was like a heroin addiction, but it was like to a person. Eventually, I realized I don't feel like I'm bonded. I've never been his mother. Actually, my children's father took me to a motel to go meet him, and that's when the first sexual encounter happened. My son would come to the hotel room. We had sex, and he did record it 5 or 6 times total. over maybe like a 6-month period.
Atkinson was arrested after the boy's father found out about the affair.
Eventually, I was arrested and I went to prison for 5 years. I was a housewife and mother for 15 years. And then I was reunited with this person. I don't know how to move forward from this situation. It has left me destroyed.
Misty, when you were talking about that, when that was playing, you put your fingers in your ears. Because that's hard to listen to, right?
I hate that I've done this. I hate this is my life experience. I hate it all. I regret it all.
Now, at the time this took place, you had not seen your son for how long?
15 or 16 years. I just remember when I had him, the first day that I had him, and I saw him, and I just didn't. It was an uncomfortable feeling.
So you never raised this child?
No.
You never bonded with this child? You didn't feed him, mother him, change his diapers? You didn't do any of that with this child?
No.
And when you decided to try to reconnect, try to find him, you had 4 other children, correct? And you had been raising them. And how had that been going?
I was doing the best that I knew how to do. I kept them safe, clean, healthy. I didn't want them to experience anything that I have ever experienced, so I tried to do the best that I could with them.
Okay. Did you ever abuse those children?
No.
Did you ever molest those children?
No.
Did you ever have any sexual interaction or contact with those children?
No.
So you're not a serial molester?
No.
You're not a serial sex offender?
No.
What made you decide to reach out to your long-lost biological son?
Just one day, my children's father went to a festival. He came back to the house and told me, like, that kid, it was there, and he's grown, and he's there, and this and that, and what do you want to do? And I didn't know what to do. We decided to look him up and reach out to him.
You told us some things about him when you met him. You said, I felt like I couldn't connect with him as a mother, but felt like I was connecting with him in another way. I felt like someone finally wanted me in their life. And you said talking to him eventually became an addiction. And you actually told him, I don't think we should talk anymore because this isn't healthy. And you said, I felt like I was developing feelings. And he said he didn't care, that he felt the same way.
Right.
And he wanted to keep talking. So we kept talking. At that point, were you recognizing these as romantic, sexual feelings?
That's the reason why I thought this is not a good idea to continue to talk, because I understood, like, I didn't feel like I was his mother, and so I just wanted to stop.
And after 3 months of talking, we decided to meet at the motel and proceeded to have a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship.
Right.
Why meet at a motel? Why do that instead of meet at a food court at the mall or something to moderate this and put in some protections for both of you?
I don't know.
In retrospect, that might have been a better idea, right?
In retrospect, never even meeting him would have been a better idea.
Right. And you said, when my son entered the hotel room for the first time, I felt like I had an obligation to proceed what we had already started. We had sex and it felt normal and natural at the time. So the very first time you were together, you had a sexual interaction. Did you say to yourself, I'm actually having sex with my child?
No, I don't know. It was just, it wasn't like a relative. It was just, felt like a normal person.
So this didn't feel incestuous to you? This didn't feel like...
Not at the time, no.
While Misty admits that having sex with her biological son is the worst thing she's ever done, she says she believes it was wrong that she went to prison for it. We're going to find out why she thinks that was not the proper consequence when we come back.
I understand I needed punishment, but I just feel like being taken away of my children, like lost their mother.
What's your relationship with those children now? And later, I don't think that's a legitimate explanation. And by the way, I need to say something to you. So take a deep breath and make eye contact with me because you need to hear this.
When I went to prison, going in there as a sex offender was very, very difficult. It's the worst thing you can be when you're in prison. The correctional officers made sure the biggest, baddest people on the yard knew who I was. I've gotten beaten in there by lots of people. Although the COs would say that I my son.
Well, I'm joined by Misty, who says she lost everything after going to prison for having a sexual relationship with the 16-year-old son that she reunited with after leaving him behind years ago. Now, she says she is not the right candidate for prison or lifetime on the sex offender registry. And why do you say that?
I don't do anything like this to be considered a criminal. I feel like this is more psychological. But I know what I did was wrong. I understand that I deserve punishment for it. I'm a disgusting person for this. I know that. I wish I could go back. And I feel so bad every day. Because every day I hate myself for this.
Your point is that you're not a high risk for reoffending.
No.
So
Absolutely not.
Caging you up was not protecting society.
I understand I needed punishment. I learned a lot when I was in prison, and I think I came out a more aware person, but I just feel like being taken away of my children, like lost their mother.
What's your relationship with those children now?
I talk to them through online, but they've grown up 8-9 years without a mother. And they had a very hard life, and it was very, very hard for them, and it's my fault.
How do they feel about you?
I assume that they feel they've had no therapy, they've had no help, they're in the middle of nowhere, stuck just like I was at their age, and I assume that they have root feelings, that they're very, very hurt. Of course they are.
You told us when we talked to you in getting the history here, you say you don't feel like you should have gone to prison for what you did, that you should not be a registered sex offender because you're not a predator.
Not for the rest of my life.
Right. And you think that you suffer from something called genetic sexual attraction. I
did experience that for whatever it's worth.
You feel like genetic sexual attraction is a real syndrome and a real thing that you suffered from.
I do, because when I met him, I changed. I started changing. I stopped eating. I stopped sleeping. It was an addiction to this person. It was insane. My family watched me go from a mother who was taking care of my children and making dinner and doing homework and flossing my kids' teeth, making sure their rooms are clean, to going to somebody who can only be addicted to talking to this person all the time. It was sickening.
Well, Misty says her crime of incest can be explained away, not justified, but explained by the theory of genetic sexual attraction, or GSA. So we're going to take a closer look at that, which was essentially her defense, when we come back.
Many people view GSA as an attempt to essentially rebrand incest. I'm concerned that Misty and people like her may use the concept of genetic sexual attraction as something they cling to absolve themselves of taking personal responsibility.
I believe this was a case of genetic sexual attraction. When I was going to prison, my public defender came back with all this information. He said, look, this is something you should read because I think that this is what's happened to you. It was about genetic sexual attraction. When I read everything about it, it was exactly what I was going through. I am on the sex offender registry. I do not believe that I should be a sex offender for life. I'm not a predator. I do not have the desire to do this again.
Well, I'm joined by Misty today, who spent almost 5 years in prison, beginning back in 2012, for willingly having a sexual relationship with her then 16-year-old biological son, who she had not seen for 15 years, had not mothered or bonded with from the moment he was born. So from her experience, other than sharing some biological commonality, he was a stranger to her. But she claims that a condition known as genetic sexual attraction, or GSA for short, does explain what happened to her when she reconnected with him. Here's what one expert has to say about that.
My name is Justin Lehmiller. I am a research fellow at the Kinsey Institute. Genetic sexual attraction is an absurd theory for which there is zero scientific evidence. GSA is really much more of a media phenomenon than it is a scientific or medical phenomenon. It's not recognized by the American Psychological Association or the American Psychiatric Association. It also doesn't appear in the DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. It doesn't appear in the ICD-9 either, which is the International Classification of Diseases. It's also not recognized by the Centers for Disease Control, or CDC, or the National Institutes for Mental Health. GSA is not legitimate at all. Many people view GSA as an attempt to essentially rebrand incest. I'm concerned that Misty and people like her may use the concept of genetic sexual attraction as something they cling to absolve themselves of taking personal responsibility. If Misty wants to move on and begin the healing process, I think that starts with dropping this concept of GSA.
Well, joining me now is Kinsey Institute Research Fellow and Social and Sexual Psychology expert, Dr. Justin Lehmiller. Now, Doctor, I feel like I can make a very good case for why she was vulnerable to actually what she did, but GSA would not be on my short list of explanations. What's the genesis of this?
The term genetic sexual attraction is one that originated in the 1980s, and it was coined by a woman who herself had developed intimate feelings for a son that she gave up for adoption, who she met later in life. And she used this term genetic sexual attraction to describe the experience she had of developing those intimate feelings. So this is a term that was not coined by scientists, and there are hardly any mentions of it in the scientific literature. It's just not a scientific concept. It's a popular media concept that you hear in the tabloids, not in the academic literature.
You hear what Dr. Justin is saying, right? And I want to tell you that I couldn't agree more with what he's saying. I think that is, I don't think that's a legitimate explanation. And by the way, I need to say something to you. So take a deep breath and make eye contact with me, because you need to hear this. So it's not a rational choice, but there is an explanation for why these things flow from that kind of history, that kind of abuse. And later...
Am I going to jail? Am I going to get locked up?
Before we get back to today's program, I want to tell you about what we have coming up next Thursday. A Florida teenager went from being a straight-A student and cheerleader to being accused of trying to hire a hitman to kill her own parents. Now, Alyssa Hatcher stole money from her mother's purse and then handed it over to someone to have her mother and her stepfather murdered. She was arrested, and in an exclusive interview, her parents speak to me about the first time they saw her behind bars.
A Florida teenager accused of trying to hire someone to kill her parents.
Tonight, that girl is locked up.
Have you ever asked her, why did you want me dead?
No, not yet.
You haven't asked her that?
Last night was the first time I'd seen her since she's been in there.
Are you curious what she'll say?
Yes.
What in her mind would she be saying to herself to justify wanting you dead? Well, Alyssa was being charged as an adult. And here's the thing, this kid was on drugs. She really didn't know what she was doing. And I don't take this lightly, but if she gets tried as an adult, she's looking at 75 years. She could get life, she could get 75 years. I did not want this young girl's life to be ruined for a bad decision that I don't think is really what she intended to do. Anyway, that's all next Thursday. You don't want to miss that. All right, now let's get back to today's show. I need to say something to you, and you need to look at me and hear this, okay? So take a deep breath and make eye contact with me, because you need to hear this. I don't think you're a horrible person. I think you made some really bad choices. And I do think, and I'm not making excuses for you, I'm acknowledging the fact that children do learn what they live. And I think your value system, based on your history, based on what you were taught your worth and value was, got down to a very base level, was physical from the time you were 10 years old. And when your self-esteem and your self-worth is defined at that really base level, there's a tendency to default to that. What do I have to offer? Well, I have to offer my body, my sexuality, but there is an explanation for why these things flow from that kind of history, that kind of abuse. Doctor, talk about it from that standpoint, if you will.
So trauma is something that can have a very powerful impact on our sexual desires and attractions. And sometimes it can lead us to act in ways that are unhealthy, unproductive, in fact, maybe counterproductive. I think in this case, it may be that all of these traumas that Misty has endured have led her to create psychological distance between herself and her son so that she doesn't view her son as her son. And that may have created this opening for that sexual attraction to have emerged and for her to have acted on it.
Look, is this a healthy choice you made? Of course not. And there's no other way to spin that. And I don't think that you are at risk for reoffending in that way, but I do think you are easily led. I do think you are very vulnerable to environmental influences and a very serious need to be accepted and belong, and I think it can cause you to compromise your logic a lot. Now, Misty emailed me 5 times for help, but it's been very difficult for her to be here, as you can well imagine. It would be much easier for her to just stay at home, keep her head down, and suffer through this for the rest of her life. But she didn't. She came here. So what do we do with that? What happens at this point? We'll be right back.
When I went to prison, it like destroyed my 4 children and their father. This whole situation, all the destruction that it's caused, I want to get help. I understand that like I'm a disgusting person. I mean, I know it offends a lot of people and it offends myself too. I just want Dr. Phil's help. I think if anyone's going to help me, he's going to be able to do it. Am I going to jail?
No, you're not going to jail. Okay?
Am I going to get locked up?
No, it's time to be helped. Okay? As you heard, when we were going to break, I said she didn't have to come here, but she did. And as soon as we went to break, you asked me a question. What was your question?
Am I going to jail?
Out of all the questions you could ask, what makes you ask that particular question?
Because I'm terrified. I'm terrified to be here to talk about this.
And why did you want to do this? Why did you want to come here and talk to me?
To get help to somehow fix, somehow make a better outcome, and to be able to fix things.
Well, there are 10,000 people you could have talked to besides me that don't have 7 cameras following them around all the time. So why here?
This is like a huge mess, and I know you are a huge influence in person. You have a huge abundance of knowledge, and I just feel like on this level of a mess that you would be the one to sort of help me start fixing things.
Do you deserve to be helped?
I do. Yes.
Doctor, when people have sexual dysfunction of this nature or at this level, has it been your experience that this kind of thing can be unwound, unraveled, and reoriented to a level of healthy functioning?
Yes. I mean, there are ways to move on to heal from this. The incest taboo is one of the most powerful and pervasive sexual taboos there is. And so from people looking at the outside in, that's a really high bar hurdle to clear. And so that's going to take a lot of time and a lot of work, and not expecting anything to change overnight. It's a daily process of taking that accountability and doing your best to make amends for it.
What do you think about what he just said?
I'm just sort of surrendering to this process and allowing this to take its course.
Would you like to know what I think you need to do?
Be locked up for the rest of my life.
Well, that's one option, but it's not on my list. First off, there's no police backstage. Nobody's going to haul you off and lock you up. I'm here to help you. Okay, can we get that off the list? Cross that one off? I think the first thing that needs to happen is you need to deal with you. You've got to deal with the fact that you have a lot of open wounds. And you need very specialized help. You are a survivor of rape and abuse and sexual assault and all of these things that change who you are. And you've never had anyone help you with that. There's a place in Nashville, Tennessee, that I have a lot of faith and confidence in. It's called On-Site, and it is a retreat that you can go to that is, in my opinion, the worldwide leader in intensive workshops for people that have been through trauma, to know how to heal those things so you can begin to build on something solid instead of shifting sands. And I think you deserve that kind of help. And so I'm willing to make arrangements to send you there. And by the way, there are no locks on the doors. There are no gates. You can be there until you feel like you've gotten the value that you need. Are you willing to do that? I think you deserve that kind of help. So I'm willing to make arrangements to send you there. Are you willing to do that?
I don't know. It's so far away.
It's scary to think about. We'll take care of everything. All you got to do is be willing to show up.
How long is it for?
However long it needs to be, and that's up to you. This isn't jail.
Yeah.
This is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity, and you need to grab on with both hands.
I can't imagine leaving my husband who's helped me through all of this to go. I can't do it.
Well, when your husband understands this, I think he will drive you to the airport. And we will certainly make him part of this whole process, okay?
There's no way that he can stop what he's doing. And
Okay, look at me. You need to not be figuring out how this won't work and figure out how it will work, because your alternative is to go back and spend another 20 years doing what you're doing right now. I'm giving you a ticket out of this hell, and you need to figure out how to make it work.
I have surgery coming up on the 19th. I've already paid for it.
Okay, look at me. I will work with your life. You need to tell me you're willing to work to get your life back.
I am willing to work to get my life back. I want my life better.
Okay. All right. Okay, we have to stop. For more information about today's show, log on to drphil.com. I would like to thank all of my guests today. Misty, thank you. Dr. Justin Lehmiller, thank you for taking the time to come here and talk about this. Dr. Lehmiller has a book, Tell Me What You Want, which is all about the science of sexuality, which is out now. I highly recommend it. Don't forget to follow me on social media. You can tweet me on Twitter, like me on Facebook, or even double tap me on Instagram. We'll see you next time.